Hello and welcome back to the Student Hub Live. Well, this is the session I've been most looking forward to out of the whole programme today. It's our shaken or stirred, what do an open degree and a pina colada have in common cocktail party from the Open programme, my great friends. And Sophie and Kate even, HJ legged it at the first sign of alcohol. So welcome to the studio, Kate.
Hi, it's great to be here. I'm looking forward to my cocktails.
Yes, so am I. It's going to be very exciting. So you will see, as usual, some widgets that are coming up on your screen, and we're going to have a little talk about the Open programme. And joining me in the studio today are Peter Taylor, hello, and
Hello.
Helen Cook, hello. Thank you for bringing all this in. I am excited.
We do our best to please.
Oh. Hello? Hello? But... It's cocktails. You've got to have alcohol at cocktail party. Well, I suppose so.
Sorry, no alcohol in our cocktails today. The only alcohol we have is my molecular models over there. As a chemist,
I
never
knew
go
I shouldn't
without
have
them.
agreed to have a cocktail party with a chemist. I should have thought that through. Okay. All right. Well, it does look interesting, I'll be honest. Okay, so what have we got here? And why did you think this was a good idea, then, to demonstrate the Open programme with this plethora of non-alcoholic drinks?
Well, first of all, the Open programme is for sophisticated students.
Right.
And so we needed a sophisticated environment to talk about the Open programme.
Good.
And secondly, the Open programme's all about mixing. It's about mixing curriculum at different levels, taking a subject here, a subject there, and putting it together. And that's what cocktails are about. Mixing different drinks and putting it all together, and such that the final product is greater than the individual parts.
OK, well, you have sold it to me, even though there is no alcohol involved. All right, so how does this Open programme work? I know Helen said we have to talk about this before we get Peter onto chemistry. So we need to outline to people.
We won't talk about anything else.
We won't. How does the Open programme work? Because this is basically a way of getting a tailor-made degree that suits you. And one of the things I know that we talked about beforehand is how people will often fit this into their interests, their qualifications and their employment to get something that really, really works for them. And, you know, throughout this session, we've been talking a bit about languages, a bit about maths and ways of fitting things in that are really interesting.
So it's all about students choosing the modules that meet their needs. As you said, it might be something that you're interested in, you've always wanted to do. It may be something to do with your work. Lots of reasons why students choose different kind of modules, and it may look a really odd mixture of modules to anybody looking in and outside, but if you look at the whole student, their kind of whole life, it actually makes sense to them and the way it all fits together. So the important thing is, and we hold up our first.
So there's lots of different ways of building an Open degree. So of your 360 credits, you might choose to do a range of different combinations at each of the 3 levels. So at stages 1, level 2 and level 3. That's one option. Okay. You can kind of mix and match as you like. The other way of doing it is perhaps choosing 2 particular subjects. Okay. So you might choose maths and music, for example, and you'd then study 180 credits of maths and 180 credits of music. And obviously you can mix and match those subjects as you choose what might be relevant to your career, your own personal interests, and providing that you study the right number of credits at each level, then you can build a degree that's unique to you.
And I guess this is important because you couldn't all of a sudden start doing maths and music and then say, hey, I fancy a bit of chemistry right at the end, because you wouldn't, I guess, have the grounding in it, would you?
Well, it depends. If you've done something, you know, before, so you might be prepared, then you might be able to do a kind of a higher level module.
Okay.
But you know, if you've never done maths before, doing kind of 3rd level quantum physics is probably going to be a bit of a stretch.
Yeah.
So it's sensible about thinking about how you're building your knowledge up through the programme. And one of the things that we have for these kind of 180 strands is suggested modules that kind of feed into each other.
Okay.
And they're available.
So they're available on the Open Degree Students Qualification website. And there's a whole range of different subjects. We've just picked a few examples here.
Okay.
And we've developed these with faculties. So they're modules that fit together well in terms of the curriculum. And they really just give advice in terms of the modules that students might want to study at each of the 3 levels. So we've got psychology here as one example. And behind we've got health and social care. So we've got them in a whole range of different subjects.
Okay.
And students aren't stuck to these, you know, they can still add other modules to fit alongside it if they like.
Now, a lot of these pathways will start with one, like K101, for example. So there is a limited range of routes that people can start accessing OU curriculum through. And with the open programme, you can change as you're going. So you might go on a qualification, then you might decide that you actually want to do 2 things and you might want to change. How do students go about doing things like that?
The first thing is you need to start on a key introductory module. So that's kind of developing your key skills for studying. So that's the first bit. And a lot of people will say, I really want to do this subject, and they'll start studying it. But then actually, as they kind of go through it, they might suddenly decide, well, I'm not really interested in it as I thought I was, but this thing really does interest me. So they can swap at various points. So you can swap qualifications. You can move from a named degree into the open programme and from the open programme into named degrees during your study.
And this is something that's really quite unique to the Open University.
Well, it's a really unique offer because we don't have timetabling problems. Any other university that's offering a range of different subjects is always going to have problems of lectures clashing and the like. But because of the way we teach, we really don't have those problems, and you can study any combinations in any way you want. And so we have some really interesting students who've studied with us, and you look at the reasons why they've studied, say, some business courses because of they're running a business. They might be doing some languages because they're selling into a particular country. They might do some science because that's the background to their product. A whole range of different things that people are putting together for their particular needs, because there aren't many things that really are just within one subject, which is one of the reasons why we chose our cocktail party, because it's about alcohol in many ways, but alcohol isn't just
Well, it's
about... Well, it's not, but
Pretend
if it was an appropriate time, not at lunchtime.
I think it's a very appropriate time. I've been here all morning.
No, the powers that be would not let us do this.
At least it will impress them anyway.
Indeed.
Right, we've asked our students how many subjects they're studying. Most of them, 50%. Well, that's not most, that's half. But it's the highest category, which is important, as my colleagues in maths will tell me, are doing 1 subject. So 42% are doing 2. And we have most students are doing arts, humanities and social sciences at 54%, followed closely by 46% doing STEM subjects. So that's an interesting idea of who's out there watching. Interesting that a lot of people are doing 2 subjects as part of their degree. So perhaps this is quite a common option, is it?
Well, indeed it is, because, I mean, if you need to kind of develop your kind of skills and knowledge within a particular subject, then usually you need to do pretty much 60 credits to actually, to grasp the subject and then move on to the next level. So that's really, and most of our modules, a lot of our modules are around 60 credits. So it's tending to push people into those kind of 2 subjects. Alternatively, you could do 1 half in one subject and the other is pretty much a mix and match. Say, doing some psychology at level 1, but then doing something else at level 2.
Oh, great. OK, it all sounds good to me. Over on the hot desk, I mean, Kate, you've done a lot of work with the Open programme, so I hope you're answering any questions that people have. Are there any burning issues before we can get on to these non-alcoholic drinks?
Well, Annie's mentioned that she's having a cocktail while she's watching us. And
Alcohol in?
well, she hasn't said at the moment, so we're not sure. And Julia's
5 o'clock somewhere. We've got an audience, an international audience.
Yeah, and Julia's been talking about how she's actually studied maths and music, and how they're actually not as different as you might think.
No.
All that counting, 1, 2, 3, 4. Lovely. OK, let's get on with the drinks.
So we're here having a lovely time, obviously, at our non-alcoholic cocktail party, but there is a serious side to things as well. And that's, we wanted to kind of use cocktails to demonstrate how different subjects can provide different perspectives on certain topics, certain key issues. So we've picked alcohol as that issue.
Non-alcohol.
Non-alcohol,
Yeah.
alcohol. Peter's going to talk a little bit about chemistry.
I can bore you to death on this, so I'll try to be as
do.
quickly as possible. So I've got some little molecular models there of ethanol. So ethanol is what the key ingredient of alcohol. And one of the great debates about winemaking is making wine a science or is it an art? So one of the big steps forward, particularly in kind of countries like Australia and the like, is the way that they've been able to take the grapes and they've been able to take a particular yeast strain that's been genetically modified and put it into big stainless steel tanks to be able to sterilize it very easily and control the process of fermentation to give a good wine. But then if you go to France, then they'll say you can only go so far with that because after a while it becomes much more of an art. It's a question of blending the various kind of grape mixtures to get a particular taste. And that is very much down to the kind of the winemaker's art. So it's an example of nothing is in one subject, but it's in a range of subjects. And then on top of that, you've got to think about how you market it. So there's a whole area around kind of marketing and packaging and the like, and logistics in delivery. Then there's the kind of legal aspect of it. So what percentages are you allowed? Are issues around kind of drink driving, and then the social kind of implications of drinking and the kind of health and well-being. So if you just take just a simple thing like alcohol, actually it purveys a whole range of different subjects.
Absolutely, yeah.
Students might be interested as well. We've put a load of links on the resources page, I understand, from OpenLearn, where we've picked articles that talk about alcohol, but they come from lots of different subject areas. So there are things in there about pubs, closing and the different cultures. But there's
Video of me about sherry making?
Yes, a video of Peter about
Is this
sherry
why
making.
We're banned from having any alcohol in the studio.
He says he does
two.
chemistry, but
you seem to have quite a keen interest in the subject.
Indeed, yes.
No, absolutely. But so much is, I mean, the thing with alcohol is you've got these brands, you've got identities, and you've also got personal taste. And I guess that's the key point, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, and to different kind of ways that and historically, we've kind of developed different ways of making alcohol from different products and actually using them, and as you said, developing them into different tastes. So that beer is fermented for one purpose is very different to the kind of the winemaking, which is from a grape as opposed to hops and the like. So we've managed to kind of use our knowledge and experience to create those different flavours.
And that's what we'd expect our students to do as well.
Indeed.
We'd use their knowledge and their experience to build their own open degree. So maybe a bit of what they've studied before with something brand new or something that's related to their job, with something they're just interested in.
But how would they know then what's right? In particular, if they're going to be drinking a lot of alcohol or cocktails like some of the students are at home, how do they make those judgments then? I mean, who can they talk to about choosing something that's right and getting to the end of it so that they're not out of their depth all of a sudden doing something that feels a bit more advanced?
So I think people need to think about why they're studying and what the subjects are they want to study and for whatever reasons. So one particular area is around careers and employability. So understanding what subjects you would need to study to, say, go into a particular area. One of the areas that we often get questions around is around teaching. I want to go into teaching. What kind of balance of subjects should I be doing? And so we've got a kind of a whole area within the university in terms of career and employment that students can talk to people and get that good advice. So that's one area you're going to make those decisions. Another is around what really interests you. So thinking about what are the subjects you want to study and why you want to study them. And then talking to advisors about possible subjects and thinking about, how difficult is it going to be for me to be able to study that subject if I haven't done any of the earlier subjects. So another one is languages. So clearly you need to develop your language skills. But if you've got a reasonable kind of background in French, then maybe you can start your French at a higher level.
We've also got a forum on our qualifications website where open degree students can go and ask other students what they're studying, which is really nice. We find that students answer each other's questions and things like that. So asking which modules they've studied alongside other modules and why and things like that. So that's another place they can go for some kind of peer-to-peer support
and there's
as well.
so many new modules coming out. I mean, gosh,
Yeah.
if I was starting, I don't know what I'd do, honestly, because there's such a lovely mix of things. But you mentioned like people doing different things to do with alcohol and various different ways of studying things. I want to get onto the chemistry and think about how people could learn some of this and what you're going to do with some of these very interesting concoctions you've got here.
Well, I don't know. This is my real kind of pièce de résistance.
Okay.
So it's 3 layers.
Your
So
party trick.
It's meant to represent the 3 different levels within the open program: level 1, level 2, level 3. Now, usually you can mix oil and water together to give you 2 layers.
Yeah.
But it's quite tricky to get something to go into 3 layers. And so that's in 3 separate layers.
Yeah.
And I can shake it. It takes a little while, but it will come back to give me those 3 layers. You can see it starting to develop those 3 layers again. Wow. So that's
even after a battering of TMAs, people will still effectively be in one piece at the end of an open degree.
Indeed, yes, they still will have their various levels together.
And the other thing about that is really that demonstrates is that by studying lots of different subjects and in a multidisciplinary way, which is how we describe it, it actually can generate new knowledge as well, new disciplines, new areas of interest. So even though you might be studying very discrete modules and very discrete subjects, actually by combining them, gives you something completely new, you know, biochemistry, for example.
But it's interesting that you study in one subject and you develop within that discipline a particular way of approaching answering questions, and then you move to a different discipline and you take the skills you learn there and apply it to that new discipline, and you're coming at it from a very different kind of viewpoint and approach from people who've been studying within that discipline. So you're adding value to it and asking questions and things that other people wouldn't be thinking about. So in that multidisciplinary space, you're actually, as I said, as Helen said, creating kind of new knowledge, and your particular combination of subjects you end up with might be quite unique to you.
I think they often are, aren't they? But how would students then feel like going to a tutorial and then you've been doing something completely different to everybody else? So you're going effectively to the same tutorial.
Yep.
You've got people maybe, like you've mentioned, studying psychology. They may be the hardcore psychologists and you might be doing it because you've got an interest in a certain area and you just may be tagging something on. You've got people then who have all this background and then you're talking about adding something else. How might students then feel? Do they feel different if they're doing an open degree?
To some extent, yes, because you don't necessarily have the same shared background as the other students, but you have a different background. You have other things that you can add. So it's not as if you've got nothing you can contribute to that debate. You actually got a completely fresh viewpoint. So if you're coming from science or whatever, you can add a much more, kind of straight science perspective to that. If you're coming from an arts, then you can add a much more of an arts perspective.
Because every student has a different perspective, and a lot of the time, some of the modules I'll teach on, they feed into various pathways. So, if I'm teaching psychology, I've got people who are doing counselling or people who are doing health and social care. So people will be coming anyway from a different perspective, even if they're doing a named qualification. So I guess I would say to people, if you are doing an open degree, it doesn't necessarily need to be that categorical. Everyone's bringing something different, aren't they?
And the other thing is that the open degree is the OU's largest degree. Just under 20% of our student population are studying for an open degree. So you may well find within your tutor group that there are, one, two, three, lots of other open degree students. So actually having those conversations with students to find out what they are studying and why is really important. So they're not necessarily going to be on their own in the module. Just find out what other people are doing as well.
Wonderful.
As I said before, it's all a question of mixing things together, but what you end up with is greater than the sum of the parts. So it's not, I've got this bit, this bit, and this bit, but you synthesise all that information together to create something quite unique and quite important.
Excellent. Did you want to show us any other demonstrations?
Not necessarily. As I said, I have my little molecules over here which have got ethanol in, and one of the interesting things I find is around distillation. So trying to distill kind of drinks is against the law. You need to have a license to do it.
I've been told.
But it's an interesting process because it doesn't come out when you distill the kind of ethanol water mixture. It doesn't come over as just pure ethanol or water. They come over together to give you a particular concentration. But one of the things I did find in the summer was I think it was some beer. I put some beer in the freezer to cool down, and I forgot about it. And
Big mistake.
but when I opened it up, there were all of these ice crystals had formed. So you then pour the liquid from the ice crystals, and then you have a much more concentrated drink.
Okay.
So instead
Don't
of
try this at home.
Don't try this at home. But it was an interesting observation that it was just the ice that crystallizes out, leaving the ethanol behind.
Wonderful. We've asked people about various pieces of advice that they give to people who are studying various pathways. And you've mentioned that, that open programmes are greater than the sum of the parts. But what advice would you give to students who are maybe, doing this sort of thing, who need to be fairly focused because perhaps they're doing different skills, perhaps they're doing concurrent modules that have different, priorities, different timetabling and very different things going on in them? What advice would you give?
It's hard because often we try to kind of balance kind of the TMA deadlines and other things with modules that we know students will be studying together. So they're kind of deliberately coming together so that it's staggered. If you're studying across two completely different subjects, then there could well be overlaps and big gaps. And that's something you just need to plan really in advance. So you need to be thinking of, when are my kind of TMAs due? When are those busy times going to be? How can I stagger things through the year and get a clear plan in place for your study?
But also, students don't have to do that on their own. They can always contact their student support team, and even when choosing their modules, they can speak to advisors to find out more information about when the TMAs might be due and how that might link with other modules. So, so they shouldn't be afraid to contact their student support team if they want some advice on choosing not just the subjects that are right for them, but also if the timing is right and if the assessment and everything is going to work for them.
And I imagine that the students who are doing this, who are combining things, probably have quite an eclectic way of being anyway. It probably makes sense to them because, like you say, they're choosing things that fit around their lives and fit into their ideas of what they want to do academically. So would those students be quite good at managing those different disciplines and timescales?
It's interesting that if you look at combined honours offerings at other universities, they have quite a high A-level tariff for students. So in order to kind of cope in that kind of multidisciplinary world, you do need to be quite well organised and be quite brave in order to take on those different subjects, because within a single subject, it's quite, you have a fairly clear pathway through it. But for an open programme student who's choosing a whole range of different things, then it is quite daunting. Can I do this or whatever? So open programme students are not only sophisticated, they're brave.
Oh, you love them, you do.
I do, yes.
Well, thank you both so much for coming in, and thank you for this wonderful cocktail party with no alcohol. But you have seriously demonstrated, I guess, this whole idea that things are tailor-made, they are to suit individuals, and that you can layer things to get something greater than just what's going into it. And I think that's a really, really nice option. No wonder it's so popular.
And it's the way the world is going. People are looking for those whole wide range of knowledge and skills in a whole wide range of different settings. So.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. And you can find more resources on the website. Helen and Peter have given us a lot there. And if you're interested in finding out more about alcoholic beverages, they have selected a lot. But there is a really interesting mix, actually, in all honesty, of things from the sciences, etc., around alcohol and human health, for example. So do check out those links, which are on the resources pages of the website. Well, thank you both very much for coming along. We now have a little video break, and we're going to show you a video about the open programme. And then, because it was so popular last night, we're going to be showing Hazel Reimer doing some citizen science about volcanoes. She did a fantastic talk about being a volcanologist last night. And if you missed that, you can check it out on the catch-up service, which should be up on the website very, very soon if it isn't already. We'll be back soon for a session about the group tuition policy in just over 5 minutes. So we'll see you then.